Our next speaker really needs no introduction. Alex Jones is one of the most controversial and polarizing figures in all of American media. I got to know him as part of our End of America advertising campaign beginning in about 2010. He graciously let us use his voice, which is probably the most famous voice in any kind of financial marketing in history, because something like 50 million people viewed our End of America documentary on YouTube. And as you probably know, he has a big internet radio presence and broadcasts daily to millions of people around the world. He has some very unique views and how he sees events and around the world developing. And rather than spoil all of his fun, I'd like to bring him out and let him tell you about it. Alex? Thanks.
Thanks for having me. All right, well, I got about 19 minutes, so I better get started here. It's good to be here back in my hometown, Dallas. And I want to thank you all for coming out. I really like the Stansbury Association Society, and the speakers so far have been really thought-provoking and a lot of great guest ideas for my own radio show. You know, a lot of people are here, experts in energy, oil and gas, stocks, who know 1,000 times more than I do about their specific fields. I just wanted to speak today about the human condition and the fact that if we don't have a free society, we don't have prosperity, we don't have any future at all. We don't even have an identity. All the major psychological studies show, and I'm going to go over some of those, that people that live in really oppressive societies just aren't even really conscious or awake and have had their humanity driven out of them. And we're now at a critical crossroads in this civilization, in this society, where there are corporate special interests that are crony capitalists who are really involved in a revolution, almost a computerized overwrite of human civilization, the good, the bad, and the ugly. They are trying to make the world in their image while masquerading as capitalist, and they are openly in thousands of publications. I mean, I'm sure you've seen them, you've heard them, from Ray Kurzweil right down the line to the folks at the United Nations saying, we've decided what your future is, and we've decided humanity is ugly and bad, and we're going to reduce the population down to almost nothing. We're not going to move forward as other civilizations have done, trying to build a better society and have progress. We're going to try to invert that under what the United Nations calls Agenda 21, which is, of course, a global treaty from 1992, to shut down economies worldwide and only allow select crony operators to control the economy. So they conquer the world through economic fraud and regulation, the whole time posing and calling it capitalist globalism when it's really just organized crime with a very sophisticated PR system through the controlled state-run medias of the planet. And the major power blocks in the world, the Chinese, the Russians, the BRICS, and the Anglo-American West are competing with each other on many levels, but also are always competing to adopt forms of tyranny to suppress their own populations and consolidate control. And it is because they're only looking out for their own corrupt interests that you almost see a blindness in the elite to the system they're creating. Now, will there be a singularity by 2040 like Ray Kurzweil, the head of Google, Future Technology says? I don't know. But undoubtedly, if the Gutenberg press shook up the church, brought down the monarchies, created a renaissance, but also a lot of other bad things, not just good things, the type of changes we're seeing yearly dwarf the Gutenberg press, and it is compressing time together. So now the opportunities in this great time of change are unlimited. It's literally like a stairway to heaven or a stairway to hell. And the globalist technocrats have decided for a move that creates a stairway to heaven, what they believe will be life extension technology, total control, a type of Elysium type world that they want to build, but a hell for us. But in truth, if we point out that this great time of change can be a positive one and not a dystopic future, if we're pro-human, then it can be basically a stairway to a much better world for everyone and the human condition. But that's going to take libertarians, conservatives, the producers to not just shrug like an Atlas shrug and leave and turn the world over to the collectivists and the king rats. We're going to have to get really aggressive in the face of this anti-human, anti-progress movement and really raise our rhetoric and our radicalization up to the level to meet this radical threat. We either do that or we will be conquered by the technocrats who are basically the most corrupt, anti-human, anti-free market people that anyone could imagine. They crave control of the markets, not competition in the markets. They crave an end to the markets and to people self-determining with the technology they develop, with the work they put in, with the literature and art they create. They want to control that process, as all despots have done in the past. And they hope that technology will be the empowering tool to bring that forward. The problem for them is they thought they could control the narrative and could direct us where they wanted to go. But the genie is truly out of the bottle and the clock is ticking. Because if we do slouch towards Gomorrah, as one federal judge famously said, Bork, and just turn the world over to the technocrats like they know best because they're in charge, we will probably see the end of this species on this planet, or certainly a new dark age that rivals any dystopian sci-fi novel that you can imagine. Now, I'm sure many men in the room are tortured by this image. Marilyn Monroe on screen there at her prime. And I just wanted to illustrate here that we're selling snow cones in hell. We're not selling snow cones to the Eskimos, ladies and gentlemen. Liberty is sexy. Liberty is popular. Liberty is truly liberal in the vein of Thomas Jefferson. And the so-called liberals that we see operating worldwide today, when you even read their own publications and writings, are, again, the most anti-human, unhappy, and generally ugliest people, even physically, that you could imagine. And they have a disdain against those of us that love humanity and believe in humanity, but also believe in our right to excel, and those of us that aren't guilty if we're better at golf or better at science or better at hydrology or better at petroleum geology or better at mathematics or better as a talk show host. We deserve to be free, to be self-determined, and to build our own personal worlds that we like, and to bring other people who we want to associate with into free association to build cultures and civilizations that reflect our values. That's true liberalism, the opposite of Barack Obama. And we must absolutely put our message out and show collectivism creates North Korea. Collectivism creates the failed Soviet Union. It creates the hell that Venezuela now is. It creates absolute nightmares of anti-human sorrow. Freedom and the free market and true laissez-faire liberty produces economies that look like Marilyn Monroe, ladies and gentlemen. Need to put her back on screen. No, seriously. We just have to truly stop being intimidated and cowed by the collectivist and by the crony capitalist, who are the richest people in the world. They control trillions of dollars. All the classic names, David Rockefeller goes down the list. They intimidate us, and they have Warren Buffett run around, the biggest recipient of the banker bailout of 2008. Look it up, McClatchy, on every channel of news, underwriting the news so he can be on CNN, MSNBC, and This Week on ABC. Go look it up. It's paid for by him. He's the main sponsor, to go, here's the angel that wants to give up all his money, when he's really in a tax-free foundation no one else is allowed to have, with Bill Gates. And all his profit is tax-free. He's using it to leverage and take over the world while lobbying to raise taxes on people making $125,000 a year, creating class envy, trying to sick the giant populations that they've put on welfare and dumbed down and destroyed on their last opposition, the true trailblazers, the innovators of every race, color, and creed on this planet. The technocrats are literally coming after our free will. They're coming after our free markets. They are trying to usurp us and dominate us. This is the great war that's going on right now by the crony capitalists, that as they destroy the free market and capitalism, are blaming the free market and capitalism for all of the hells that they have been the main drivers and authors of. These people are the enemy. You got a nice house, you own some businesses, you got 50, 60, 100 employees. Somebody on welfare thinks you're Daddy Warbucks. They have no idea you're paying 70% of what you make in one form or another, and that most of it's siphoned off to banker bailouts to the globalist. But slowly, even in publications like Rolling Stone, they have to admit that at the top, more and more it's becoming rigged, and that's the final revolution with all of these electronic systems that they're putting in to monitor even the smallest trader online is meant to be able to game the system even more. And that's why we need to be firmly against any more regulation of the little guys. What we need to see is a return to things like Glass-Steagall against the big giant mega banks like Goldman Sachs. Hands off the little guy. And by little guy, I mean hands off somebody if they're worth $1 billion running their own company. Because it's the globalist operatives like Goldman Sachs, who 9 times out of 10 is behind the gun control, the open borders, all of it. These people literally have set up a system where they're exempt from all the regulations, and then they lobby for more regulations to be heaped on to the general public. It's all a fraud because they selectively enforce the regulations. I say get rid of all of them. That's what we're coming down to here. I mean, if they're not going to enforce them on them, then get them off the rest of the population. Again, if you read the Communist Manifesto and you look at the goals of the communists, and then you find out that it was Wall Street interest in England and the United States who, on record, this is mainline history books, put the Bolsheviks into power in 1917, you realize what they're trying to do here with the false Occupy movement and things, where they're trying to create a false revolution against all of their tyranny to fully take over the society. Problem, reaction, solution. And that's why we see more and more our governments are up for sale. And then they use the exact same systems that they have put in place to then say, oh, let's not allow any political giving. Let's arrest Dinesh D'Souza because he gave $30,000 or something, the filmmaker, to his friend who was running for the Senate. Let's arrest him, or let's arrest Martha Stewart for a crooked toenail or fingernail. But again, let's let George Soros give hundreds of millions of dollars in the last decade to different politicians to vote to take our rights. Incredible. And a fraud. Continuing. Imagine if you went in a time machine back 30 years ago and imagined an American president saying, if you have a business, you didn't build that. Or if we raise the debt limit, it doesn't raise the debt limit. Or, I never said you could keep your doctor, even though he did say you could keep your doctor. Obama has the nerve to go to Africa and say, you can't have a car, you can't have electricity, because the earth will burn up. Talk about fear-mongering. What type of world are we in where this guy lands in a giant wide-body jet with red carpets at a cost of $5 million a day and then tells people, you can't innovate, you can't have progress, as if progress itself was dirty and bad, when all the real studies show a truly industrialized society is cleaner than a pre-industrial society with these population loads. And while they talk about new clean energy and new systems, they block them or only hand out little select contracts to their friends. Again, more of the same crony capitalism. While they shut down clean coal, they don't let T-Boone bring natural gas to California to bail the state out. They're blocking everything that they don't control, and in the process, bringing us into a new dark age. And again, I want to be clear, I'm not being cynical. When you go out with the bad news of what's happening, people say, man, you're being negative. Don't be a cynic. I'm not being a cynic. A cynic thinks there's no hope. A cynic thinks everybody's bad. A cynic thinks humanity's done. That's what the globalists say. That's the idea they push. That's why they teach Common Core, 2 + 2 = 5, because they want you to be dumbed down and cynical. No, it's very positive to admit the problems we have, to truly identify it, and then go after them. And I want to add to that, if it sounds like I'm being pessimistic, saying we have these problems, all the major studies, there's literally thousands of them, I'm sure you've seen many of them, show that when you truly help others, teach them how to fish, don't give them fish, when you are positive, when you are focused, when you do want to know what reality is and be a realist versus a pessimist, you will live longer, you will be happy. And there was just a new study came out, the National Post of Canada reported on it, scientific study, being a cynic linked to triple risk of developing dementia, Finland study suggests, and that's just one of many. Now again, the empire is going to strike back. The good news is CNN's had a 44% drop in viewers in the last year. They were already a shadow of themselves before that. MSNBC, 24% drop in the last year, and that's on average every year. They have less listeners and viewers on MSNBC than local Dallas primetime radio shows in the morning do. They have about 100,000 viewers on their average show, 500,000 on their top shows. That's why they've turned loose the CIA, the elements of it controlled by the globalists at the top, to engage in propaganda domestically. And they're going, yeah, we lied to you, what's the big deal? So again, we've gone from them denying Bilderberg Group existed, crony capitalist, with government ministers making decisions, to them being all over the news and being exposed and criminal investigations being begun by multiple governments. We've gone from them denying they're involved in domestic propaganda to throwing it in our face in the Washington Post foreign affairs publication. Zbigniew Brzezinski, Obama's top foreign policy advisor, has come out and admitted they've got to shut down the alternative media. It is exposing them on every front, and the fact that this government openly used al-Qaeda against Syria, Libya, Egypt, and others to destabilize the entire Middle East for Saudi Arabia. Again, there's some of the numbers I was just going over with CNN plunging, with MSNBC dropping 24%, and the plunge only accelerating. You can see numbers there with Infowars.com and Breitbart.com, literally thousands of places online above MSNBC.com. But MSNBC's gone up a little bit because as their TV completely collapses, they have gotten a slight dead cat bounce in their internet. Literally, it is a dead cat bounce. And that's the problem, is they're going to come after us now. They're going to stage false flags to blame it on us. They're going to demonize us. They're going to call the Ron Paul-style Tea Party terrorists. They're already doing it. They're going to have the Republican leadership with John Boehner put more money into defeating Tea Party candidates than Democrats, because the establishment is now showing itself and uncloaking, because we literally, ladies and gentlemen, have them on the ropes. And that's why they're hiding in plain view saying your kids don't belong to you on MSNBC. We're going to take your guns now. We're going to bankrupt coal, even though it supplies half the country, 52% of its power. I mean, this is treason openly being said, because they can't hide it anymore. Now they want to, in a confidence game, hide it in plain view. If we all start speaking out, if all of you start a blog, all of you start a YouTube channel, it's so easy. All of you call into talk radio, all of you go to the State House. There are more of us than there are of them times 100. And they will literally implode in on themselves right now, just like Ceausescu in Romania, just like so many other despots and dictators. This society of people that don't like individuals and who get power out of groups and out of gangs and out of sucking off of people is coming to an end if we want it to. The only question is, how long will it take? How much hell will we have to go through before we, as a people worldwide, say no to the collectivist? But how do individuals say no to collectivist? Well, the lie of the collectivist is we all collectivize and let central planners at the Politburo, at the UN, at UNESCO tell us how to live in the Central Committee. It's the opposite. We are all individuals, but collectively through our choices and through the free market of ideas, finance, industry, agriculture can reverse this trend as simply as flicking a fly off of our knee if we realize the power we have and collectively make decisions that stand in the way of the tyrants. If we are able to do this, our destiny is literally unlimited. Humans are only happy when we're daring, when we're trailblazing, when we're inventing, when we're being challenged and challenging each other, and when we have the right of free expression and the right of free association. And the technocrats want to control the future. They want to control our development selfishly for themselves, and are in a war against the individual and in a war against what's left of the United States of America. And that's why it's essential for everyone to realize that you are critical in this fight. And we are actually coming from behind, and now every metric shows are in the lead. Because even though the establishment has dumbed down the general public, and even though half the public can't even tie their shoelaces, it doesn't matter. Those poor zombies are out of the game. What matters is that the vast majority of that other 50% are the producers. And we run this country and we run this world. And if we simply stop complying in little ways, it will bring this system down. 5% defeated the British that had never been defeated in their history. We have way more than 5%. I'd say close to 10% that are really figuring out what's happening. We wake up another 10%, it's over. We can have a new golden age of human liberty worldwide. Thank you so much for coming out today. I want to salute you all for your quest for freedom.